Donald Trump. Is he losing it? Is he losing his marbles? After he admitted that he posted an AI generated image of him as a Jesus-like figure healing a person, a soldier, and others around him praising him, paying him homage. He claimed, no, it's me as a doctor healing the people. And then we came across a claim that he said, no, the image was fake news. Then he had people responding him, Christians etc., saying, hey, take it down, it's blasphemic, you're the Antichrist. So he removed it. He then, as it has been recorded, as this video here states, he made statements about the current Pope Leo, and then he went on to diss him and supposedly made death threats against the current Pope Leo. And Pope Leo responded to him and those death threats. So what's going on? We had this idea generate in our head in relation to the original ancient, very old Galilean-Aramaic manuscript scriptures of the Apostolic Church of the East, which were hidden for like 2,000 years, therefore preserved by that particular church, translated into the nearest English equivalent by the native-born Aramaic-speaking translator from Mesopotamia, Syria, Victor Nimrod Alexander. First, we are going to look at a book that we have. It is called The Last Pope by author John Hughes, and it's supposedly a prophecy, or the prophecies of Saint Malachi for the new millennium. And this John Hogue is the author of the bestseller Nostradamus series, etc. So we're going to show you that. But first, you're probably wondering who the heck is this John Hogue. So we're going to have a look at him and his biography. The biography of John Hogue and resume. Biography of John Hogue, 200 words. John Hogue defines himself as a rogue scholar. He has travelled 3 times around the world studying meditation disciplines, reporting on new religious movements, cults, and compiling a reference of the world's prophecies concerning the future of humankind in the new millennium. Considered the world authority on Nostradamus and other prophetic traditions, Hogue is critically acclaimed for his ability to cut through the social, religious, and nationalistic projections of prophets and their interpreters to find threads of insight they all share. Futurist, accurate forecaster in his own right, creator of what some people call at the Huffington Post. What some people call the Huffington Post of prophecy websites, HogueProphecy.com. Hogue has received wide international recognition, appearing on over 100 television and 800 blog and talk radio shows on 5 continents: North and South America, Asia, Australia, and Europe. He has the most multimedia exposure of any prophecy scholar in history at present, and syndicated reruns of his many documents and radio appearances at several times each month around the world. A prolific author of 75 to 105 articles each year for his high traffic website, HogueProphecy.com. Hogue has published 19 books in 19 languages. He currently lives on an island in the Pacific Northwest. Maybe he needs to, because it's just too much, maybe. Yeah, who knows. John Hogue resume. A selection of the over 100 television appearances and documentaries in which Hogue has appeared since 1987 to mid-2012. And here they all are here. Ancient Prophecies on NBC, The View, Unsolved Mysteries, and so forth. And there's more information on him here. And then following ebooks that you could possibly download. One of them, The Last Pope, The Decline and Fall of the Church of Rome. So you can read that for yourself. Here is that particular book. The Last Pope, The Prophecies of St. Malachi for the New Millennium. And it reads on the inside jacket, in that looks like 1139. Just check that out. Maybe it's 1439. Yeah, 1139. Saint Malachi set out from Ireland on a harrowing pilgrimage to Rome. On sighting the eternal city, he fell to the ground and began murmuring cryptic Latin phrases, each signifying the future destiny of the popes. For 400 years, the manuscript was locked in the labyrinth of the Vatican. On its rediscovery in 1595, it was rejected by the church authorities as fraudulent, but the content of the prophecies remains remarkably and chillingly accurate to this day. 90% have come true. In examining the content of St. Malachi's life, his pilgrimage and its miracles, John Hogue presents a fascinating account of the fates of the popes and 800 years of Catholic prophecy, Roman Catholic prophecy, including those of contemporaries Saint Hildegard von Bingen, Joachim de Fiore and Nostradamus, whose vision of the papal succession closely resembles that of Saint Malachi. In this first complete study of the prophecies in almost 100 years, Hogue brings his expertise to new revelations regarding the authenticity of the mottos. As the Roman Catholic Church continues to witness an eclipse in papal power, this masterly work uncovers the truth about St. Malachi's prophecies and reveals their significance as an account of the papal progression which Vatican policy makers have found too threatening to acknowledge. Because then he says there's one more pope, and that's it. No more popes. And this pope will be claiming to be a St. Peter type figure, and supposedly will be demonically led, and perhaps a false prophet or the Antichrist. So that's what got us thinking, okay, remember some verses from the Galilean-Aramaic Revelations. Revelation chapter 17, 18, 19 and 20. We're going to look at that as well. So let's have a look inside this particular book, see what he has to say. We'll skip all the hype and fluff as much as we can. Okay, here's acknowledgements on the left here, then here's the contents page. Continues. And the future. Color plates, black and white plates, and so forth. Preface. A past and future history of the popes. As we approach the year 2000, well, this book was written prior to that, right? The Holy Church begins to shiver with the first waves of millennial fever. The time for a fresh and insightful examination of the prophecies attributed to St. Malachi concerning the near future end of the papacy is needed. The last pope is a unique and unorthodox past and future history of the Roman Catholic Church. Prophecies critical to the understanding of the Church are not repressed here, but are intended as compassionate guidelines to help it undergo its ultimate transformation. The author begins with the personal history of Saint Malachi and examines to what extent his medieval church and mindset were products of pagan Rome, transubstantiation of Christianity over the preceding 11 centuries. After that, the evolution of the church into modern times and then into the future, using St. Malachi's 111 Latin mottos and Doomsday Coda to tell the story of the grand succession of popes unto Judgment Day. In unrolling the succession, we will inject Catholic visionaries of doom and revelation in the order of their appearance in history. Among them you will see the approved and disapproved auguries of St. Hildegard von Bingen, Joachim de Fior, and the parallel vision of the papal succession from Catholic prophecy's most controversial seer, Nostradamus. And take that guy with a pinch of salt and lots of pepper. Side by side with the chronological milestones of Catholic prophecy, Roman Catholic prophecy, will be the first comprehensive examination of the love/hate and mission/denial relationships that popes have had with their own legacy or plague. Was that supposed to be? No, it's plague. Definitely not plague. Of Roman Catholic seers. Roughly halfway through the succession, the mottos of St. Malachi suffer a credibility crisis. The author scrutinises the sceptical view that the Latin mottos are forgeries from the High Renaissance, and then he puts the arguments to the test with a continued examination of the succession of popes up to and beyond our times. And then he approaches he talks about the new millennium and the prophecies of St. Malachi and the Catholic seers who take on greater urgency. He then goes on to say he'd investigate Pope John Paul's obsession, he's long past, right, with the prophecies of chastisement and salvation coming from apparitions of the Virgin Mary at Fatima, Garabandal and Medjugorje. The last Pope climaxes with a foretaste of the tribulation and apocalypse expected for the remaining two popes on St. Malachi's list, called Glory of the Olive and Peter of Rome. The final words to the prophecy of St. Malachi are hopelessly doom-laden, but is its author able to see only the darkness left after the door slams on his own age? The author attempts to unlock the final seal, if you will, of other Catholic visionaries introduced earlier and compare the warnings of doom and religious rebirth to St. Malachi's final terrifying testament. Introduction. Are we 2 popes away from Judgment Day? Now we're down to 1. Okay. After this Pope Leo, then this next one may be leading all to Judgment Day. Again, are we 2 popes away from Judgment Day? On an early summer's eve in the year 1140, an Irish bishop and his attendant monks climbed Janiculum Hill on the western edge of Rome. They ascended the Vista to pray in thanksgiving for the safe completion of their 16-month pilgrimage. Afterwards they sat upon the hill's ancient brow to marvel at the many churches and magnificent pagan ruins that stood high enough among the tired, tiled and stucco urban jumble below to catch the final blush of the setting sun. Bishop Malachi, reclining on Janiculum Hill with his flock of Irish monks, relaxed against the sensation of the earth exhaling the heat of the day. The wrinkles around his pale eyes softened as the glare of sun reflected stone surrendered to the cool colours of the approaching night. As he watched the great city slip behind the bed sheets of its lengthening shadows, his attendant saw him begin to cry. Just as Jesus once wept before Jerusalem, a future saint now watched his vision of Rome. But unlike the Messiah, who had been the Irish bishop's reason for dedicating his life to monastic discipline and the mortification of the flesh, or ending the lust, the temptations, all that sort of stuff, Malachi's tears were the overflow of an inner ecstasy. The bishop cried himself to sleep. His monks stood watch in the darkness over their master, not daring to disturb his motionless form, which seemed cast in palpable silent presence. Not long after, the stars defined the shadow spires of Rome, and the trees of Janiculum Hill vibrated with the rhythmic mantras of cicadas. a voice called out within their midst. It was as though a loving finger carefully and softly tapped each man on the shoulder of their contemplation, making them startle. Rome. The bishop's scribe drew close to his master's face. Rome, whispered Malachi again. The scribe could barely make out the movement of his master's lips. The white crescent moons of the bishop's eyes caught the starlight just as his eyelids closed to a trance. For a time, his dream gaze moved rapidly, dancing over the topography of some fantastic inner sight. Then they relaxed, and an unknown presence within the man descended to work his lips, letting pass a Latin phrase. Normal sleep seemed to return for a time before the eyes of the bishop would rove across the inner screen of a new vision, and the lips would deposit another phrase. By daybreak, the weary scribe smothered the last of several candles and witnessed the ascension of the rising sun, casting its first blush on the drying quill strokes of 111 Latin phrases on yellow parchment. The bishop, now awake from his dream, explained that God had given him a vision of every pope to reign after the current pontiff, Innocent II, until the end of time when God would judge the world. Some will say that the facts of this medieval story come to us clothed in the fantasy weave of an apocryphal Renaissance gown. Critics agree that Saint Malachi and his monks mounted Janiculum Hill, but claim that no prophecy was uttered there. They say that the scribe who wrote down his ecstatic outpourings did so with fresh Renaissance ink on an old medieval parchment 4.5 centuries later. But as we will see, the truth of these prophetic assertions can still cause a whispering cloth of fable to rustle as she strides into our time. And if we can investigate the naked essence of those prophecies without being distracted by the covering of potential myth, we could find before us an authentic and powerful list of predictions chronicling the decline and fall of the Church of Rome. Whether these Latin phrases were composed in 1140 or by someone in the 1590s under the pseudonym of a medieval saint, with a pretense, the author is a prophet. If his assertion is true and the papal succession is finite, then we who are alive in the final few years of the second millennium after Christ, we who mark its sunsetting decade in the reign of the frail and aging Pope John Paul II, well, he's gone, so we're up to Pope Leo now, it's the second to last, are but 2 popes away from Judgment Day. Well, now we're 1 away, supposedly. That tomorrow they want to sell. We are told that before Malachi and his monks returned to Ireland, they presented Pope Innocent II with a manuscript containing these prophecies. The document passed from his hand to the Vatican's subterranean archives, where it remained forgotten for over 450 years. In the early 1590s, Dom Arnold Wion, a Benedictine historian, discovered the 111 mottos and the Coda of Doomsday at the end of the reign of the last Pope, and inserted them in his famous work on Roman Catholic history, Lignum Vitae, published in 1596. For the next few hundred years, the inserted list attracted much attention and controversy, essentially because it dared to rub the Church's nose in a prophetic faux pas. Whoever the author is, Church authorities considered it spiritually incorrect for any Catholic seer to begin a countdown to the end of the Catholic Church. Given a Pope's average life expectancy, the last Pope depicted in these Latin mottos will sit on St. Peter's throne sometime around or shortly after the year 2000. And this is all Roman Catholic generated, right? He was a kosher Jew who became a Galilean fisherman under Jewish tradition, culture, etc. And then he became a non-kosher Jew and he preached the good news. He went to Rome and they martyred him. They crucified him, and upon his request apparently he said, "I'm not worthy enough to hang uprightly like the Mashiach or Mashika, Yeshua Mashika, Jesus the Messiah, so please hang me upside down." So why would they kill their first bishop, their first elected pope? It just does not sound right. Defies common sense, logic, and reality. Any document that predicted an end to the Catholic Church and the final destruction of Rome would certainly warrant the launching of an anti-information campaign. Enter the Jesuits. They're the ones behind the scenes that protect the Pope. Yeah, they've got all that black dress on, all that sort of stuff, and they actually carry weapons. Very protective of him, okay, and probably have influence over him. Enter the Jesuits, the harshest critics of these prophecies. When the phrases were rediscovered near the close of the 16th century, the priests of the Society of Jesus acted as a papal secret service to defend the faith and sustain orthodoxy. Imagine if operatives in the CIA had uncovered a prophetic document in the Library of Congress containing an accurate prediction of the succession of US presidents up to the final overthrow of the US. Yeah, imagine that. Who's going to be next after Trump? Would not the CIA declare it a forgery to protect national security? And if these prophecies were already in the public domain, would not they promote a set of approved visions that contradicted them and painted a rosy picture, a rosy future for the US presidency? Yeah, major cover up, right? Conspiracy. Yeah. So the author says that is precisely what the defenders of the Vatican's future have done and continue to do. In his quarter-century study of the world's prophetic traditions, he never encountered a more diligent board of censors for its prophets than that of the Roman Catholic Church. You will not find St. Malachi on the bookshelves of church-run bookstores, nor will you chance upon books by visionaries who imply that the church as it exists today might not be around in the coming millennium. The answer why can be found at the beginning of books by Vatican-approved Catholic authors, which display the Lumen Gentium. This proviso is in essence instructs the Catholic faithful to remain open to private revelations. However, Lumen Gentium adds that judgments as to their genuineness and the correct use lie with those who lead the Church and those whose special task is not to extinguish the Spirit but to examine everything and keep that which is good. Good is defined by the Vatican censors, not by you or me. You will therefore find accounts only from seers that do not put into question the eventual survival and triumph of the hard-pressed Catholic Church during the coming century. The Holy Fathers' homogenized prophecies generally march into the future in the serried ranks and following chronological expectations. And the warning, the miracle, the chastisement, the era of peace, and so forth. Looking ahead through the rearview mirror, the life of St. Malachi and how his church became Roman, pride and piety, the early years, and it goes on about his church and how he lived and so forth, and possibly how he became a Roman Catholic. And he made a pilgrimage to Rome to seek out Pope Innocent II for his official recognition for the newly reformed sees of Armagh and Cashel. He would not return to Ireland without the symbol of papal approval, a pair of palliate to be reverently lowered upon the shoulders of the archbishops of Armagh and Cashel. The pallium is a circular band of white wool decorated with 6 crosses and other religious symbols signifying a bishop's direct jurisdiction over an ecclesiastical province. And people tried to dissuade him from going there, making that journey. A new cult of baby eaters infests ancient Rome. Between AD 61 and 64 and 11 centuries before Malachi's weary feet passed through the dilapidated gates of medieval Rome, they saw, S-O-R-E, besandaled bony feet of an old Jew named Simon Peter shuffled through the sturdy western gate of the pagan world capital. Rome with its million citizens was a dirty sea of tangled tenements flowing over the Pontine plain around 7 magnificent marble covered islands of ivory white palaces and temples. Upon these heaven hills of Rome circled the mist of burnt offerings and the sewer blotting aroma of incense. So look at the book of Revelation, and it talks about she sits on 7 hills. It's talking about Rome. It's not talking about New York or anything like that, as we've been told. It's nothing to do with that. The Rome that shriveled the Jewish nostrils and appeared before the falling eyesight of Yeshua Mashiach, Jesus the Messiah, his sent man, Peter, which is what apostle means, was a microcosm of the entire empire. All the races, religions, cults and creeds walked over its dirty doormat, staking their place in its urban labyrinth. Peter entered Rome as one of the early church's most important ears, or chiefs or heads. Okay. He went there to preach the good news. He didn't go there to become a bishop. Okay. And they say he became bishop of the illegal cult's largest underground community in the Roman world. Or maybe he did work underground or something like that, but we don't believe that he became a Roman Catholic and became their first bishop or pope or whatever. A less dogma-bound re-examination of language and historical data about the earliest Christian era has prompted some modern scholars to revise their conception of the historical Jesus, or Yeshua, and the sect of the Nazarenes, redefining them as the spiritual terrorists of their day. Yeshua, supposedly, it's got here, was a Jewish revolutionary, come like a whirlwind upon the spiritual as well as political arenas. He was born a Jew, preached as a Jew of a reformed Jewish faith, and was martyred as a Jew. Okay, so in that sense it means that he was, like Peter, under the Jewish, the Pharisees, the Mosaic law, etc., etc. He was a Galilean. He spoke Galilean-Aramaic because his mother was born in Nazareth, apparently, of Galilee. So he probably spoke Galilean. That's what we found. He spoke Galilean-Aramaic. Same as his contemporaries, his disciples like Peter, etc., who were basically Galilean fishermen. And then they wrote all in Galilean-Aramaic. Might have been a couple there, like say Matthew or somebody like that, tax collector or whatever he was, that knew Greek, being a Greek. So he probably translated all into Koine Greek, or somebody did eventually, we believe. Okay, so it goes on about Peter, basically. In effect, Jesus declared himself the Jewish Dalai Lama, or the Jewish people's Pope. Yeah, I don't know about that one. Who was saying that, right? Just his author or somebody else? How did it happen that a movement so self-contained within its own race and culture became, by the days of Bishop Malachi, the all-powerful medieval religion of the Western European Gentiles? Rabbi Saul of Tarsus happened. The 13th apostle was not part of the inner circle of Jesus' 12 disciples. Yeah, he was a later apostle that had the vision, right? He never stood face to face with him to be corrected when he went astray, if he ever went astray. Saul was a Jewish agent working for the Roman government. Okay, this guy's getting a bit wacky. He was a violent man on a crusade to weed out and destroy followers of Herod. Okay, this is okay. We'll take that back, because this guy is actually saying that prior to that, Saul of Tarsus, before he became Paul, was a person who rounded up these believers and put them to the punishment, sent them to their death, etc. And then he gets this vision and he converts to the faith, and he confronts Peter, etc., etc. Okay, so you get what this guy's saying there. That's why you have to be really careful when you read something, right? Because you take it out of context. That's what we just did. Okay, so it says here, the 13th apostle was not part of the inner circle of Jesus' 12 disciples. He never stood face to face with him to be corrected when he went astray. Saul was a Jewish agent. He was a Pharisee, apparently, working for the Roman government. He was a violent man on a crusade to weed out and destroy followers of the heretical Jewish sect that we call Christians. One day his hate turned into love. Call it an act of divine vision or a case of sunstroke. Saul was smitten by a vision and voice of the crucified Christ while travelling on a desert road on his way to root out Christ's followers in Damascus. And the Christ supposedly said to him, Saul, why are you hating on me, basically, etc., etc. The champion of Orthodox Judaism became the Christian faith's Christian faith's first great evangelist. For 20 centuries we have all had to take it on faith that Yeshua, or Jesus in spirit, blinding Saul with his light in the Syrian desert, had changed his mind and deemed it right that his church should be adapted any which way Saul could to make attractive to the Gentiles, or the non-Jews, right? Yeshua would use him to build a bridge to the Gentile world with the cosmopolitan language of Saul's fluent Greek. So apparently, according to this guy, he knew Greek. Well, we could understand that because he would have access to it, being a Roman citizen and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So he had that privilege of being highly educated. Rabbi Saul did not need to consult the apostles or Jesus' successor to the claim of Messiah, his brother James. Okay. So he didn't have to go and find James and consult him, Jesus' successor, in that particular faith. Christos had spoken to him directly. Paul, his new name, was the founder of Christianity's more universal or Catholic outreach to the world beyond God's chosen people. That means global or universal. Universal or global. It doesn't necessarily mean Roman Catholic. Okay. In the sense, yeah, they were global. They are global today. Or universal. That means that they are renowned, widely known around the world. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that they're well known in outer space. Yeah. That's a bit too stretchy. Okay. The Nazarene hierarchy labelled Paul as first heretic. To the Nazarenes, the message of Jesus was more important than the martyred man. Paul used his formidable eloquence to change the focus back to the departed Messiah, or Christos, the new Greek label he helped to promote. Yeah, so in the Bible, it actually says that he went to see Bartholomew or something like that. Barnabas, maybe. We think it's Bartholomew. Maybe Barnabas, can't remember. Okay, so he goes there and he visits him, and apparently there's a whole lot of new converts to the faith, possibly non-Jews or Gentiles. Okay, so he terms them followers of the Christos, or the Christ. Okay, the Christians. Yeah, that's where they first became known as the Christians. But then you have Peter, who no. He goes on about being a kosher Jew before he gets confronted by Paul. No, that's pagan. We're not taking that Roman loaned Greek word, etc., etc. Well, nothing to do with them. This is part of them being kosher, right? Don't associate with non-Jews, etc., etc. Don't talk to them. Don't be in their midst. Okay? Don't eat with them. Don't have them in your house, all that sort of stuff. Okay, so he's very anti that, and that's why he said, no, we're not going to take on that name. We are Mashiachai, followers of the Messiah, the Mashiach, or Mashiach, right? But yeah, that's the one who basically pushed it, that term, Paul. Yeah. So you've got to understand that there's two factions. There's the Christian that Paul was emphasizing, and then there's the Christian, the Roman Church, the mixture of pagan, okay, and a form of Christianity. So there's two factions there. Okay, it goes on about Peter and Paul, etc. It says here there were no celibate popes or priesthoods overlording early Christian communes. There were nearly as many church mothers as church fathers. The record of women's significant contributions to the early church was systematically expunged from the medieval history accounts that Malachi would read in Malchus's library in Lismore, and so forth. Okay, it goes on about Peter and Paul, both executed. Paul was beheaded. Peter was taken to a spot outside of the city, a hillock upon which Christianity's greatest cathedral in the Vatican City complex would later be built, where the dome of a canonized Peter would rise 16 centuries hence. The feet of Simon Zelotes were hoisted into the air in his infamous upside down crucifixion. So there you go, verification that he requested to be, because he's unworthy to to be crucified upright like his Lord, Jesus. So he said, crucify me upside down, please. Yeah. The martyrdom of Peter in Rome established the Petrine diocese of that city as the prime centre of early Christianity. Thus each successor after Peter was expected to bear the same mantle of Christ's authority, to build the rock of the Christian church upon which was what was once the very corrupted whole of pagan Babylon. Over the next 2 centuries, the cult of the canonized St. Paul and St. Peter, this is canonized by the Roman Church, right, spread more rapidly than any other religion, partly because of the early Christian fathers. Okay? Partly because most of the early Christian fathers took St. Paul's lead and gained converts by matching Christ's fears to those of other Roman gods. Miracle to miracle, virgin birth to virgin birth, the Gospels were soon pockmarked by a number of non-Judaic aspects from the popular Roman cults of Attis, Adonis, Dionysos, aspects from from Osiris, and especially Zoroaster. Indeed, much of the New Testament's basic doctrines of good fighting evil, Satan, salvation, and the resurrection of Christ all sound suspiciously similar to the Zoroastrian sect of Persian Mithraism, which was the most popular Eastern religion in pagan Rome, or inside pagan Rome at that time. The Roman Catholic robes, the swinging censers, the choice of incense, and the crozier of the Bishop of Rome all have pagan origins. Even the cult of the Virgin Mary can find its source from Mithras, who, like Jesus, was born of a sanctified virgin. Mithraism also forecasts a final battle like Armageddon, in which good triumphs over satanic evil. Even the Church's long marriage to doomsday prophecies may have its origins in the very popular end-time prophetic traditions of Mithras. Okay, and continues. So what we're thinking, okay, this is an original thought. We haven't taken it from anybody else. Yeah, we've looked at the original ancient Galilean-Aramaic manuscripts, the New Testament manuscripts, the book of Revelation, and thought, oh my gosh, from what we're seeing in regards to Trump and his blasphemy, that picture, etc., and his death threats, supposed death threats to the current Pope, Pope Leo, yeah, thought, what the? Started ticking in our mind, right? Oh my gosh, could this be, right? So we decided to go and have a look at Revelations 17. Revelation chapter 17 from the Galilean-Aramaic, the original, okay, from the Apostolic Church of the East, hidden for 2,000 years, therefore preserved. Actually, the language preserved the scriptures, according to the translators of our translation project. And it reads, and there came of those, one of those 7 angels, one, okay, the ones who have the 7 chalices, or they're like, vases, usually they drink wine from, or water, or things like that, and spoke with me, John, as he said, come, let me show you, John, the judgment of that great prostitute. That's, okay, it's a woman, it's symbolic, and it means a false church, with a false religion, false leader, etc. She sold herself, basically, to kings and queens and the powerful, right? Who sits over great waters. So what it means is she is elevated and rules over many other nations, with whom she fornicated the kings of the earth, and from whose wine of prostitution she sold herself, right? Became drunk, or made herself available, became drunk, the dwellers of the earth became drunk, yeah, were swayed by her, the world over, okay? And the angel, that one angel, took John back to the wilderness spiritually, and he saw the woman as she sat on a red demon that was full of blasphemous names, that has 7 heads and 10 horns. And no, it's not the Doja Cat video, okay? She does similar, but probably using the book of Revelation, right? Prophecy. Yeah. Okay, so let's have a look at the footnotes. Okay, judgment is literal Aramaic idiom or expression, sentence or condemnation. Okay, then John is led by the Spirit, the Holy Spirit. Okay, he's given this great vision. He saw the woman as she sat with this false church, this false religion, as she sat on a red demon. Okay, what's a demon? Demon basically is a carnivorous creature or demonic beast. Okay, from the pits of hell. It hates us humans, right? It really hates us. That's why when you die and you go into the afterlife, go to hell, they'll rip you apart, torture you, rip you apart, because you're made in the image of God. They hate God, they hate you. Okay. Okay, so he sees this woman sitting on this red demon that was full of blasphemous names, total nonsense names, titles and all that sort of stuff, that has 7 heads and 10 horns. So it's some sort of like conglomeration, probably a gathering of nations under her, or those who are sucking up to her. Okay, we'll go after the first one, right? Because during history, that Roman history, they invaded others. They said, right, submit, pay homage to us, come under us, you'll be all good, right? You'll be able to trade and buy and live and all that sort of stuff, and then adopt our religion. Okay, pay homage to the Caesar, well, this sort of stuff. Okay, so many of these people did, because what other choice did they have? It's either that or die, right? Okay, so and that woman, that false church, false religion with its leader, was dressed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold, precious stones and pearls, who has a golden cup in her hand, which is filled with the filth and uncleanness of her prostitution, or her selling out. Okay, on earth, or all over earth. Okay, so she, behind the scenes, she's really wicked. Okay, full of sin, blasphemies, abominations, etc. Right? And so that's basically a sign of royalty. Okay, purple and scarlet, and precious stones, etc., etc. She's very, very wealthy. She's very, very rich. And between her eyes, right here, right, it's the gate to your mind. Okay, prefrontal lobe. Okay, and between her eyes, on her forehead. Okay, just talking about here, forehead. Okay. And between her eyes, a disposition that is written. It's like here, okay? Probably, John could see it, right? Babylon the Great, mother of prostitution and earthly satisfactions. So she's full of lusts and perversions and all that sort of stuff, according to this book of Revelation. And I, John, saw the woman that was drunk with the blood of the saints. These are all the ones that believed in the Christ, right? And the witnesses of Eosha, or Jesus, okay, the Messiah. And John was amazed as he saw the great wonder, because it's like, wow, he's having this vision, so he's like, wow, what the heck is this? Okay. And the angel told John, are you amazed because of this? This one angel goes on to tell him, I'll tell you about the disposition of the woman and the demon who bears her. She's on his back, right? The one that's carrying her, okay, who has the 7 heads and the 10 horns. Okay. The demon, or that carnivorous creature, that beast, that hater of men, human beings, that you saw, John, was going to be, and he was destined to rise out of the abyss, the pit, the hell, pits of hell, right, and go to oblivion. So that indicates that, or go to perishing. Okay, that there indicates that there's something in the depths of hell that's chained. Okay, think about it. It's either a huge wicked as beast dying to get out to be released upon the world according to the scriptures, etc. Okay, or else it's the devil himself, because when the angels rebelled against God, they were cast out, they fell to earth, and they were chained in the abyss. Okay, so all those fallen angels walked the planet and became human and all that sort of stuff, and had genitalia and mated with all these women, the daughters of men, all that sort of stuff. Baloney, load of crap, right? Okay, that's Gnostic. Yeah, that's pseudepigrapha. Meaning people, possibly the author during the Middle Ages, decided, well, okay, getting all these questions from people. Okay, how did Cain produce children? There's only Adam, Eve, Cain, Abel. Cain kills Abel. There's no mention of children, and they start filling in the gaps. Okay, so these theologians say it's pseudepigrapha, and that's why it wasn't included in the canon. Okay, they say, well, don't know who the author is, but it's written about the medieval days, 15th century, something like that. Yeah, these so-called experts verify that. Okay, and some NDE person said, not a YouTube documentary or whatever, that they died and they saw this massive ass demon chained in this circular pit, okay, and it's like busting to get out and cause havoc upon the world. Okay, so yeah, it's up to you, the individual, to decide, well, okay, that's the NDE, whatever reasons. Okay, it's all over to you. But that's what this person claimed. Okay, we're sort of, a little bit skeptical with some of them. Like one said that he had a visit to heaven or something and saw St. Peter and his wife was pregnant. It's like, really? Yeah, well, this sort of stuff, you just got to be really careful with that. Okay, so he said he saw the woman that was drunk with the blood of the saints and the witnesses of Eosha, or Jesus, and he was amazed that he saw the great wonder, because apparently this religion was going out and killing them all, right? Running them up and martyring them, killing them. And the angel told John, are you amazed because of this? I will tell you about the disposition. The demon that you saw was going to be and was destined to rise out of the abyss, out of the pit, and go to oblivion, or perishing, or eternal torment, right? The dwellers of the earth will be amazed, those whose name is not written in the book of life, so the ungodly, from the foundation of the universe. So possibly there's a book of life, right? It's a giant big book of life and your name's already in there, and then if you like, it's a fairy tale, all this sort of stuff, I don't need him, all that sort of crap, right? Your name gets crossed out, and that's according to NDEs as well. Okay, so okay, this demon was going to be and was not going to be, and as he fought, okay, he fights against the Lamb of God, right, the Christ, when he returns, right, supposedly. Okay, this is where the mind has the wisdom. The mind that has wisdom manifests itself, it reveals itself, right? Okay, you have a brain, intelligence, and you work it out, right? Okay, it'll reveal itself. It'll reveal it to you probably through the power of the Holy Spirit. Now this is where that mind that has wisdom manifests itself. Okay, these 7 heads are 7 mountains over that which a woman sits. Remember, we said earlier in Malachi's book, she sits on 7 hills, according to that author. It's a Roman Catholic Church. No, it's not New York City or anything like that. Yeah, she sits over these 7 mountains. Okay, she rules that region. And the kings are 7, 5 of which have fallen. They're gone. They're historically, right? They fell. One of them is, and the last one is yet to come. And when he comes, he will have little desire to rule. So he's not coming as a king or anything like that. Okay, and so forth. He doesn't have that desire. So we'll look at 10 here. See what it says in footnotes. 17:10, literal Aramaic idiomatic expression. Little blessed is he that to hold them together. Okay. He hasn't got that blessing there to become somebody like a king or whatever, right? Okay, he's just not interested in that. Okay, a king that rules over them, it keeps them all unified and held together. That's basically what it's saying. Yeah. And the demon who was going to be and was not going to be, and this one is the 8th, but comes from the 7 and a destroyer. Okay, so possibly there, possibly it's that to do with that scripture, like persons full of demons, and they get cast out, and then they come back, they find that it's swept and clean, and they enter back into that person at some point. So it's like 7 demons come into that person, etc., etc. Remember that scripture? It's possibly related to that. We're not too sure on that yet. We'll keep you updated though. But then again, it could literally be kings. But we're looking at it, and it says here the demon who is going to be and was not going to be, and this one is the 8th, but comes from the 7 and is a destroyer. And the 10 horns that you saw, John, are 10 kings, those people who have not yet been crowned, except authority as kings is given to them for 1 hour with that demon, or for a short time. Okay, so it's the demon behind it. It's giving them that power, that authority, that power to do what has to be done, or what's meant to be done, right? So yeah, they're human beings, very powerful, but behind them is this demonic force. They only have one desire, in their power and authority they give to the demon. So blind allegiance, or conscious allegiance to that particular force. So they're probably satanic, yeah? Or some satanic order or a group or whatever. Call it what you will. These will fight with the Lamb, so that they'll fight with Christ, right? They'll fight with what's true. Okay? The faith, probably. Okay? Anti it. And the Lamb shall be victorious over them, for he is the Lord of lords and King of kings, and those with him that follow him are called and the chosen and the faithful. Okay? So you could say that you, the believer, are the called, okay, but many are called but few are chosen. Okay, and the chosen by him, right? And those who remain faithful to him, okay, no matter what, right? And well, these are probably prior, there's a scripture where he comes back, he's seen in the clouds, and there's 1,000 others with him, or something like that, angels and whatever, right? Those are the ones who followed him around, etc., etc. Okay? Yeah, that, according to that scripture, right? These will fight, these demonics will fight with the Lamb, those led by this demon. They'll fight with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall be victorious over them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, etc., etc. And he told John, this angel told John, the waters that you saw, where that prostitute sits, they are the nations and peoples and motherlands and tongues. So understand that when it talks about waters, it's symbolic, okay, as it says seas, okay, or shores. It's meaning that nations, has power over these nations, okay, or it's a certain power that sits on a particular nation, a geographical location. Okay? In this case, it would be Rome. Okay, and John was told by the angel, the waters that you saw, where that prostitute or that false religion with its false church, false leader, okay, sits. They are the nations and peoples and motherlands and tongues. So, going back to that historical record that people were invaded, they had to succumb to the Roman Empire, or else die off. So, what other choice did they have? So, they submit to her, they become citizens, and they're able to trade, all that sort of stuff, okay, and live their lives. Yeah, but they had to pay homage to the Caesar, to his image, the church, the false church, that leader, etc., etc., right? All part of the deal. Or it could be pointing at a future conglomeration of nations and peoples and motherlands with different languages. Okay, we'll get to that in a moment. And the 10 horns that you saw, and that demon, they hate that prostitute. So this particular group, faction, really can't stand her, right? Okay. They maybe succumb to her, but behind the scenes they really hate her, right? Despise her for some reason. That's what we're going to try and figure out. And 10 horns that you saw in that demon, the power behind it, the authority behind it, They hate that prostitute, and they will lay her to waste and leave her naked, and they will eat her flesh and set her aflame. So let's look at 16. Okay, make her burn, right? Literal Aramaic idiomatic expression: burn her with fire. Okay, they'll destroy her. Yeah, they'll take all she has for themselves because they're greedy, etc., etc. Yeah, and then they'll burn her. They'll destroy her. For God, or Allah, and it's nothing to do with the Muslim or Islam Allah, because the A on the end is duality, and it's in reference to the, possibly in reference to the triune Godhead. Okay, it's nothing to do with Islam. Okay, and they make claims. They're imams. It says in the original Aramaic or the Aramaic, about our God Allah or the Prophet Muhammad. No, it doesn't. We have the evidence here. It's translated into English. There's nothing there about Ahmed or Muhammad or whatever, right? And him being the Holy, where it says the Holy Spirit, the Comforter will come upon you, Peter, etc. I'll send you a Comforter, whatever. Okay, it's not Muhammad. Okay? They don't believe the hype. For Allah or God has put in their hearts, certain people's minds, right, to do His will only. So He's behind it, right? Yeah, and give their kingship to that demon. So he's allowing them to be swayed by it, right? Okay, as He did with the Israelites in, I believe, Exodus. Okay, etc., etc. Those who lusted after their own or same sex, that sort of thing, right? He says, okay, well, they're not listening to me, so I just let them go. Yeah, hand them over to their personal lusts and etc., etc., right? And that'll be their downfall. Okay, they'll be under my wrath. No longer have my blessing. They'll be under my wrath, my anger, my curse. Okay. Okay, so basically the same sort of thing happening there. Okay, because it's prophetic. Okay, they'll give their allegiance to that particular power. Okay, whether they're aware of it or not. Probably are aware of it. They're probably some sort of satanic order, something like that. Well, we've got to define that, right? Got to prove that, right? Okay, until the words of Allah or God are fulfilled, the prophecies. And the woman that you saw, John, is that great city which rules the kings of the world. Okay, so the person out there that see New York City or this sort of stuff, I don't think this guy rules New York City. Okay, it'd be understandable if the person ruled the United States of America, but each individual state, no, don't think so. Okay, it refers to Rome. Okay, but the thing that we came across with this Galilean-Aramaic translation into the nearest English equivalent is it's futuristic. It's more to modern times, or the last couple of 100 years. Okay, as it says down here in the footnotes, we'll have a look at this first. For He's put into their hearts to do His will and give their kingship to that demon, that man-hater, that carnivorous creature. Okay, until those words of Allah or God are fulfilled. And the woman that you saw is that great city which rules the kings of the world. So you have the footnotes here, which says, okay, a world empire. Okay, this here, up here, was translated, then printed and published into, say, book format like this, the Galilean-Aramaic New Testament by Victor N. Alexander, right? Okay, around 2015. So here it says the world empire. It's being formed. Okay, a world power. Okay. And it puts here that rules over the world. Okay, has kingship upon. Approximately present day at this point of the vision. So this is printed and published in 2015. So further up for Revelation 12, we believe. Okay, the 10 horns that you saw are 10 kings. These people, you have not yet been crowned, except authority as kings is given to them for 1 hour with that demon. They only have one desire, and their power and authority they give to that demon. Okay, so again, as we stated earlier, they don't want kingship. They don't want to rule in that sense. Okay, they have a different motive, agenda. Okay, and it says down here, they were not yet placed or set up for 1712. Literal Aramaic idiom or expression, set, okay, hasn't been finalised at this particular time. And here's the big kicker in the nuts: the Soviet Union and its satellite states at that particular time. Well, we think, or we believe that we've come across information years ago, right? But don't take it as, how do you put this? Go do your own research to verify it, right? That apparently they were called the United, was it USSR? Okay, way back 2009, something like that. Okay, and then maybe it changed hands or it collapsed or something like that. So then they called it the Republic of Russia, something along those lines. That's what I say. Go do your own research on that. Okay, that's what we come across. Yeah, so they have these satellite states, which are, let's say, ones that they formerly had, right, and they're trying to get back, i.e. the Ukraine, Georgia, etc., etc. Whatever the last 10 or 20 years has revealed, right? They're fighting to get their states back that they formerly had, and so forth. Okay, so they possibly are the ones that really hate this Vatican. Okay, and what's the reason behind that? Because they're communists. Okay, knock out capitalism, get rid of that, and communists will rule. They'll have allies. Okay, let's say, just for example's sake, right? The Chinese, communists, right? Korean. If North and South Korea join forces, they'll be hell of a power, right? This is what what's his name? His name Mila Jovovich, that guy of Timelines, stated as well. If they make peace and get together, then they become this really powerful, threatening force. Okay, so we've covered the Chinese communism, the Korean communism, and then you have the Russian communism, all united, right? And then they'll probably have the United Arab Emirates, okay, behind them, Iran, etc., etc., and probably the terrorist factions, the extremists, as foot soldiers, troublemakers, etc., etc. Okay, we're not saying this is total fact. This is just what we have begun thinking from reading these original manuscripts in English, right, and these footnotes. So they combine together and they become this powerful force. But then we thought, hey, with all these reports of Trump and all these attacks on Hormuz, Iran for the oil supplies, all this stuff, and now his threats on the Pope, etc., etc., it's all fitting. Okay, we believe it's all fitting. We just got to prove it beyond a doubt, right? Okay, this guy's losing it, and this is what's happening. We're not saying he is the Antichrist or anything like that, right? As everybody else says. We're not saying, oh, Jesus gave me a vision, I died, went to heaven, I had an NDE, went to hell, and he said Trump is this, Trump is that, right? We're just going from what we can see, okay? The evidence, okay, and matching it with these original Galilean-Aramaic scriptures translated into English, okay? So getting these ideas, okay? No one else out there is talking like this because they don't have these original Galilean-Aramaic manuscripts. They're referring they're always referring to these modern Americanized English translations, right, from the supposed Greek, etc., etc., revised versions, okay, a later Greek. They'll say, oh, it's Koine Greek, all that sort of stuff. But how can it be if those are long dead, no longer written languages? You'd have to have someone that looks at these original manuscripts and knows exactly what to do, following the similar method as the Galilean-Aramaic translator Victor and Alexander, looking at the root words, etc., etc., of the modern derivatives, and then comparing them with the original ancient long dead manuscripts languages, right? I.e. the original Galilean-Aramaic or the Tab Asheret Aramaic, etc. Okay, and then they come pretty close to what the translator Victor N. Alexander would say. Not exactly, because people have different methods of translation, understanding, perspectives, conclusions, all that sort of stuff. So it can vary. Okay, and it's never exactly the same. Very similar, but not same. Yeah. So, yeah, that's just the idea here, right? From this translation in the footnotes. Okay, so that's probably the power that destroys the Vatican eventually, right? That's what we are assuming, because that's what it's saying here in the footnotes. Okay, so we're moving on to Revelation 18 to see what happens when you continue the story, right? Okay. So basically, John sees another angel, completely different angel, who comes down from heaven, who has great authority, and the earth glowed with his glory. Okay, very holy. Okay, and he cried out in a powerful voice as he said, there she falls, Babylon the Great, the dwelling place of demons and the haunt of every evil spirit, and every filthy and hated, flying and hated spirit, and of every filthy and hated demon. Of the wine of her ferment drank all the nations and the kings of the earth, fornicated with her, and the merchants of the earth from the strength of her inner thrills became rich. Just very dainty, very royal, like covered in gold and dressed in scarlet and all that sort of stuff. And she's a bit of a show off as well, apparently. Yeah, so they sucked up to her, right? They traded with her, they did deals with her, they partook in her iniquities, her evil works, etc., etc., right? So judgment is going to come upon them, but first it's come upon this certain geographical location or nation with this false church, this false religion, this false church, or put it the other way, false church, false religion, false leader or prophet, right? Okay, it's coming to its end, and it's going to be destroyed according to these scriptures. Okay, and then it's revealed this particular place was sick, it was wicked, it had abominations, it was doing all this dirty stuff. Okay, that's what it's saying here, because it reveals it was full of wicked demons, spirits. Okay, and every other nation that was entwined with her, they were sharing in on it. So it's some sort of, how do you say, of late there's these videos saying on YouTube, whatever, it's a whole big, how do you put it, order, yeah, of sickos. They're into everything, yeah? Imaginable. Yeah, it's the Epstein thing. It was a worldwide. It's a worldwide sickness of this particular organisation. It's not confined to one little place. It's worldwide. But this is probably the core root of it. Yeah, if you've checked out those Epstein videos. Yeah, this is the source, and it's not realised until she basically is destroyed, according to the scriptures here. Okay, the dwelling place of demons, those that hate human beings, the carnivorous beasts, etc., etc. Okay, the haunt of every evil spirit and of every flying and hated spirit, both male and female, right? For of the wine of her ferment, that she has this chalice, right, and she drinks from it, and it's really horrific wine. It's bitter. It's right. Okay. That's her. She drinks from that cup of. It's her iniquities, right? We'll go further. Yeah. Yeah. She became rich through these others sucking up to her. Okay. And then John hears another voice from heaven that said, "Flee, get the hell out of here, right? From her, my people, so as not to be a partaker of her sins." Anyone that's under that particular church, they may have good intentions. They may be really good, faithful Christians, etc., etc., right? But you're just in the wrong place. Got to get out of there. It's a warning before you share in her the wrath that's coming to her, her plagues, etc., etc., right? Okay, according to these scriptures over here. Okay, so John hears another voice from heaven that said, "Flee from her, my people, and not be a partaker of her sins, and from her punishments, judgments coming upon her, right? That you may not be a recipient, a receiver." Okay? Because if you are of her, then you're going to share in it, right? Okay, if you pledge allegiance to her, it's coming upon you, right? The wrath of God. Okay, for her sins have stacked up to heaven, right? Up to God's nostrils. You can't stand it, right? Yeah. And God has recalled her abominations, all those wicked things. He's revealing it. Yeah, He's remembered it. All they've done, right? So, to all those believers, etc., okay, those who are suffering, those who have suffered, He says, pay back her as she paid out. Okay, what she did to you, do to her. Okay, but probably not weapon-wise. Don't send a nuclear bomb and blow to pieces with that sort of stuff. It's like spiritually, probably, right? Yeah, okay. And pray for her. Yeah, she might be redeemed, all that sort of stuff. Forgive her, all that. Okay. So pay her as she paid out, and repay her double like her works. Of the cup that she mixed for you, mix her a double portion. Because he's apparently the soul's underneath the altar of God, saying, "When, Lord, when?" And he says, "Wait just a bit longer, it's coming." Right? Okay, and gives them robes and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's coming. The wrath is coming upon it, right? And when will we be revenged, Lord? And just hold on a little bit longer. Okay. How she swaggers in her gait. That's her dress, right? Her attire, and she shows off. All these shall give her pain and grief. For in her heart she says that I preside a queen, or I sit a queen. Neither am I a widow, nor will I see sorrow. And nothing's. We're so powerful, nobody can do nothing, to undermine us or take us down or whatever. Right? Because of this, okay, maybe she's a denier. These scriptures are wrong. It's not going to happen to us. It's all baloney, right? Yeah, we're too cool. We're the best. All this sort of stuff. She sits proud, boasting. Because of this one day her punishment will come, death and travail and famine, and by fire she will burn. For omnipotent is the Allah, or God, who judges her, and they shall weep and wail and writhe over her, the kings of the world, those who fornicated, those who parlayed with her, right? Sucked up to her, traded with her, did the same wicked deeds that she did, and so forth. Those who fornicated and showed off, they're all puffed up with pride. Yeah, look at us, we were wealthy because, boast, ego, right? Those who fornicated and showed off with her, when they see the smoke of her pyre is like, we have a fire, it's like, what's that, Jim Morrison song? What's it called? Like My Fire. So we've got the pyre, P-Y-R-E. It's the smoke of the fire, right, basically. As they stand from afar. So these merchants, etc., these powerful, these kings and queens are standing from afar going, what the hell's going on here, right? What the hell's happened to her? From the fear of her agonies, they're like, oh no, no. As they say, woe, or pity, that great city Babylon. Pity on her, right? That powerful city, for in 1 hour, or that particular moment, that period of time, came a judgment, right? She's been destroyed. And the merchants of the earth will wail over her, they'll cry over her, because that's their source of wealth, fortune, etc., etc. Maybe they realise that, it's going to happen to us, because we have been involved with her. And the merchants of the earth will wail over her for their cargo no one will buy, never again cargo of gold and silver and precious stones, etc., etc. And it goes down further of all these things that they get from her. But what got us was, it says here in this translation, they traded cattle and sheep, horses and wagons and hides, skins of animals, right? And even human beings. So we've like gone to a source and asked it, and it says, yeah, possibly human beings, the skins of human beings. Like, eh? What? Yeah. Okay. And the craving for your own fruit has left you. So we got this idea that originally they had good intentions, but somewhere along the way they got corrupted. Okay? They wanted to do good, but somewhere along the way they got corrupted. And they became this corrupt, wicked religion, false religion with a false leader, etc., etc. Yeah? So that fruit, or that good, has gone from you, right? And all those divine and pure have disappeared from you. So it had like really faithful believers in Jesus the Christ. Okay? But then they turned their backs on him for some reason. They all disappeared. And never again their merchants are to be found. Okay, that's probably talking about that city right there. Okay? Those who became rich from her stood from afar because of her fearsome punishment. And they cried and they wailed as they said, woe, 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 that great city. All that sort of stuff. And it gets down to them supposedly, it's all symbolic, they throw dust on their heads and they shouted as they cried and verified and wailed saying, woe, woe, great city. There's something here we were looking for. We've missed it somewhere. It's one particular word. It's called, here it is here. In the book of Revelation, chapter 18:13. And cinnamon and ominum. We thought, oh yeah, this is some sort of spice or whatever, perfume, whatever that they sell. But we checked it out, and guess what it means? Okay, let's have a look at the footnote first. 13. Okay, down at the bottom here. Okay, it says here Chinese spice. Okay, so which one is it actually pointing to there? Where are we? 13. Cinnamon and ominum. We're not sure, but translating it, okay, what's that word in Aramaic, Galilean-Aramaic? Supposedly, okay, we're not saying it's right, but what we were told is it means human beings. We'd have to check with the translator through email to verify that, because maybe this source is actually wrong.